Pals, hello, and welcome to another episode of Everything Endurance. It seems like a slightly awkward way to start an episode, but I'm going to go straight in with an apology. Let's just clear the air, let's be absolutely honest. The guests that we were going to have in this afternoon are understandably too busy to talk to us today. The guests in question were Luke and Hazel Robertson. Now, I know, I can imagine that you're pretty angry about this. You know, it is a terrible, terrible setback, but you got to understand these guys are about to take on an expedition that they reckon is going to take about 80 days, so it's quite long. They're going to cover over 2,000 miles in kayaks, on bicycles, and on foot, travelling from the southernmost point of Alaska to the northernmost point of Alaska. We're talking glaciers, mountains, Arctic tundra, the lot. And, there's a lot of last-minute planning that goes into an enterprise like this. We can kind of understand they've got a lot on their plates right now. So, Luke, Hazel, we wish you well, and we will talk to you in approximately, 90 days when you've finished what you're doing and when you've got your breath back, okay? So we look forward to talking to you then, and we'll be following your adventure. Also, I'm on my own this afternoon, which is fine. I doubt anyone would be particularly disappointed about that. It is my bald self alone interviewing this afternoon's guest. The reason being, Chris is currently buried in his own last-minute preparations. We're off to Peru for the Jungle Ultra in just a few weeks' time, and he is currently cajoling embassies and ambassadors, getting our last-minute paperwork and stuff sorted. And if we're honest, the last thing we would want to do is put a recording device in front of Chris on an afternoon like this. I know what he's like with paperwork. There's likely to be quite a lot of swearing. It's not going to do us any favours on iTunes if they have to bleep out, say, 30-40% of everything that he says. And, we're a family-oriented show, so we're going to keep out of Chris's way this afternoon while he gets all of the last-minute paperwork done. Now, I have, this afternoon, a very special guest. This guy came to our attention last week when he finished a trip that he started in Derby in 2010. He embarked on what he thought would be like a 2 to 3 year trip around the world, a charity cycling trip that has ended up taking in 7 years. He's raised over £10,000 for charity, and he has travelled over 43,000 miles, which is absolutely tremendous. Okay, this afternoon we're going to be talking to Leigh Timmis. Hello, Leigh.
Hi, thanks very much. Nice to be here.
Well, thank you very much. You flatter me. You must be having a very strange time of it over the last few days.
Yes, mate. Yeah, it's been a crazy time. I wasn't expecting to come home to so much chaos. When you're on the bike, you have these ideas of what coming home might be like, and the roast dinners and seeing your family, but things really picked up, and I've had a lot of attention from the media, and had a lot of interviews this week. I've come from this silence and solitude in a tent and on a bike, and then into this media whirlwind. It's been crazy, but it's wonderful too. I did feel like it's the beginning of a new adventure for me.
Yeah, I saw your stories got as far out as Australia as well, hasn't it? There was an ABC News article, was there?
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, there you go. Your story's travelling around the world, but considerably faster than the news did.
Man, if it travels slower, would be problems.
Not that I'm having a go at you for how long your trip took, Leigh. I'm incredibly impressed.
It's pretty nice to be on the show. Yeah, being insulted already from the beginning.
I thought I'd get straight in there, But no, this is nice. I like a conversation like this because we have chatted to people who are, they're ultra marathoners, and what they go out there to do is to run the thing as fast as it can possibly be run. And what your trip seems to have been is just much more about being in the environment and taking it as it comes. And I've been reading your story pretty avidly over the course of the afternoon, and it's incredible what you've been through. It's a short lifetime out there over 7 years.
Yeah, it was epic. But, just what you were saying then, referring back to the beginning, it was never meant to be this meandering kind of long-winded adventure. I left probably similar to a lot of the ultra runners that you've interviewed. I left with the idea of just pitching myself. It was a man against the mountains, against the deserts. I didn't expect to take so long. It was a plan of 2 or 3 years. and I was going to be out there on my own, and I was going to cover all this distance very quickly. And um, I think I was very lucky with the very lax way that I planned things. I ended up, when I left, I didn't even know how to wild camp. I'd never done anything like this before. I came from a mountain bike background. So I ended up doing this touring, and at the end of the day, I didn't know where to stay. I'd knock on people's doors in France and ask if we could put the tent in their garden. And then they'd be, oh, yeah, of course. If you had anything to eat, do you want to come in and have a drink? So I'd spend these evenings with the people that I was meeting. And very quickly, I realized that that pursuit of something, I don't know, more egotistical, that idea of being me against the world, it was much less important than the way of spending the time with these normal people whose lives I was passing through. And so that became more the emphasis for me. I realized that spending my efforts on the bike to have these rewards of experiences was a really important part of my journey. And then because of other reasons, economic and the places that I ended up in, suggestions by other people, the route that I took extended itself quite a lot compared to what I expected. So I ended up on this, epic journey.
Do you have a final figure for the mileage that you covered?
Yeah, it's just over 44,000 miles, 71,000 kilometers.
That's all of the miles, I think.
That's all the miles. I collected them all. Yeah, you get a bonus mile at the end.
Oh, it's like Pokemon. That's it. You've got them all now.
I've got so
Through
many
the rest of it.
hours. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. And would you say you found that right from the start? Because I think we're very much taught not to expect the level of kindness you actually get when you start traveling around. And if there's something I get from what I've read about you, it's that you very much experience kindness on a pretty much daily basis.
Yeah, I think it's one of the more important lessons. I've learned so much out there. Things that I'd like to pass on to, I don't know, I'd like to talk in schools, and I feel like I've got a responsibility to represent the countries I've visited as well. But yeah, when I left, coming to the end of England, I was explaining to people, I'm riding around the world, just random people I meet in the street. Oh, where are you going next? I'm going to France. In France they hate the English, you're getting a lot of fights. I end up getting to France, and like I was saying, then people invite me in. I ended up at a big bonfire. They had a festival there, I can't remember what it was, in the Champagne region though, and I ended up meeting these strangers, and they got me hideously drunk. I spent a few days with them. Again, explaining to them where I'm going. I'm going to go through Europe and then Turkey and Iran. And, what, you're going to Iran? You're going to get killed in there. You should take this. They gave me a big hunting knife.
Wow.
Which I ended up carrying all the way around the world, actually. Never used it. Cut a watermelon with it. But then by the time I get to Iran, the people there are so kind again. Like the same story. I meet people in the road, or people at the end of the day, and they ask me if I've got a place to stay, what I'm going to do, where am I going. And then they say, don't stay out there in the cold. You should come into the house, share a meal with us. By the time you come to leaving, they've told you their stories about their family. Grandma's been to Mecca. She's got these key rings. You should take them. Fill all your bags with food. You can't leave without these gifts. The things that we're told and the expectations that have been put in our minds from the media, the news, the newspapers, it was completely the opposite to what I found in the world. I think that's a really important thing to take as well, that so many people nowadays seem to take second-hand opinions for their own. They believe what's on the news. They believe the stories that we're told without even going there or meeting somebody from that country. I think it's a really dangerous thing to experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I haven't done anything on the scale of what you're talking about, Leigh, but I remember doing a trip a few years back to Saudi Arabia for work, and there was genuine trepidation from me, and then you arrive there and you go, oh no, they're people. They're just people, actually, and that's fine.
It's bonkers. It ended up, there were still places in South America, 5 or 6 years into the journey. And I've learned this lesson for myself. I've listened to the same people tell me the same thing. You're going to be killed there. There's these problems, blah, blah, blah. I got to Colombia and people were telling me before there, you're going to get killed. There's problems with drugs. There's bandits. Blah, blah, blah. You get there, beautiful, wonderful people. They take you in. And it's a really hard thing to accept. It's quite hard to find that belief in yourself, I think, when everybody in the world is telling you that it's wrong or that the other people are the evil people. But the only person that seems to believe in is you. It's still very hard to believe.
No, I completely understand. But there must have been some tough times as well. Did you meet anybody that did reinforce some of those negative stereotypes?
I think I've probably got the nicest story. I've met quite a few long-distance cyclists on the road, and a lot of the first stories that come out, when you meet strangers, they want to know the hard times. Like, they want to know that you've been attacked or something like that. And very luckily, I've never had anything like that happen. You know,
Wonderful.
I spent most of my time out in rural areas or in deserts and farms, and the simple lives that people have, they don't have a need for anything more. I never got attacked with people wanting to take money or passports and things like that. Actually, the times when I came into cities, things got stolen in the hostels, which is generally the places where us rich Westerners go and stay. We have everything we need, but there's a camera lying around. Somebody's just going to slip one of those into their bag, or a waterproof got stolen once.
Yeah.
So with regards to being attacked, no, nothing really that bad. The times when I've put myself in a stupid position, other times when I've had problems. So I got lost one day I was on the Silk Road. Around the end of the Silk Road, I was going in between Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan, and the borders are so kind of ambiguous. You don't just ride down a road and there's a big fence or signs. You can kind of go through a farm and you wander into the next country, and then you meet some people and you ask them where you are, and it's you're going to have to pass back through that field and then you'll be back in the right country. Wow. Anyway, under the Pamir Mountains, it was beautiful, the snow-capped mountains. I put this tent up. I'd been lost that day. I had to backtrack about 30 kilometers, so I put the tent up wherever I could find a place. No problem. Woke up in the morning, packing the tent away. After making breakfast, some coffee on the stove and stuff like that, packed everything away, looked up and I was surrounded by military soldiers with their machine guns pointed at me. I was At that point, I wasn't even nervous or frightened. I was more annoyed, angry, because for so long along the Silk Road, they had these roadblocks, maybe every 20 or 50 kilometers, and each one, I guess they don't see many foreigners on a bike, which is normally a great thing. When I meet strangers, it's normally great. They've never seen someone like this, but with the military, they wanted to check visas and passports and what's in your bag and where you're going. And you go through it all, and then you get your momentum up, you carry on, and then 20 kilometers later, the same thing. So to be woken up by these guys with machine guns, come on, guys, what are you doing? But after a while, they were all speaking Russian at that point. After a while, they must have radioed the translator, and they just heard this crackling, military position. I was okay, I slept on army ground.
Whoops.
But when I ended up doing stupid stuff by accident.
I was going to say, this was by accident. You were no means, on a spying mission there in the stands.
Man, I wouldn't be in such a financial disaster if I was a spy, I think.
No, this is very true. Also,
£5 a day.
But then you wouldn't admit to being a spy on a podcast that I'm going to make public, would you? So who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, but there was a time I did go to Tibet, kind of illegally. It's an area that I was unsure whether you needed to get permits to go in. Before me, a few years before, I had a friend who'd cycled through Tibet, and you didn't need anything. And then I was reading on the online stuff, government warnings or whatever, that you did need a special permit to go in this time when I was there. So I kind of went around the checkpoint that you might have to show any paperwork in, and sneaked myself into Tibet, which was probably the most James Bond thing that I've done. It's by far the most stupid thing I've done, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. If you're listening to this podcast and there's this great adventure cyclist who's gone off and done these stupid things, don't listen to him. He's an idiot. But yeah, it's probably about 500 meters of checkpoints. You go to a big barrier, and then there were soldiers checking paperwork, and then you go further on through, and there's military and police and probably government workers, and I think you had to show a lot of stuff. And I saw this whole checkpoint from the mountains. So I waited until 2 o'clock in the morning, went under the barbed wire, I left the bike. I went for a little recce first, went around, and you go through a little bit of like a coppice, some woods. Then there's a big satellite behind some bunkers and stuff, and then there's some trucks behind that. This man walked out and saw me. I was just act normal, just having a look around. I walked back. I was like, okay, this is going to go down. If I'm going to go through, I've got to do it now. Took the bike, went past all this stuff. Then I got to behind the army barracks. and all the lights are on. The soldiers must have been in there. And I realised that I've got these reflective bands around the tyres. Oh, no. If anyone looks out of that window, it's so obvious. There's this guy wheeling a bike behind. So I ducked behind some shrubs, hid, and some trucks came out. I was like, surely they're coming to look for me. Nothing happened. 15 minutes later, this is in the dead of night. I'm trying to sneak around. And it was the most stupid. I would be a terrible spy. This is how you know I'm not a spy. It was the middle of the night. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. It was a full moon. It just snowed. It was like floodlights over everything. And I was wearing a bright orange down jacket. Just the least stealthy person.
No spy wears a busy vest, surely. No spy wears a busy vest.
No, exactly. Well, you'd think so. Probably a really good spy who's not expecting to be caught or questioned. But anyway, I got through that. Hit the tent for that night, and then I carried on. I think for 3 weeks I was up in that area in Tibet, cycling along at 5,500 meters. It was insane. And there was nothing up there. I met a few Chinese guys in ship's containers. They were miners up there. And occasionally a military van had passed. They just wanted to check that I was all right. And a police car passed one day, and the policeman got out and was like, "You're the most crazy man I've ever seen. There's a cyclist up here. Can we have a photo?" So I got a selfie of me and a policeman in Tibet doing that. But after 3 weeks, it was hard work. It was really difficult up there. It was very, very cold. I was still camping, and it was February, but minus 40 degrees at night.
Wow.
And that changes everything. Elastic doesn't stretch. It goes solid, and water that gets on the threads of the bottles just freezes like super glue. It's impossible to open again. And I was walking out onto frozen rivers to try and find water, risking my life. When I look back at the things that I did, it was really stupid, but it was the essentials of life. I really did have to risk my life to do that. And with no oxygen, like at 5,000 meters, it's a real struggle just to cover. Some days I'd cover about less than 20 kilometers, I think. So, I don't know, less than 15 miles, pushing a bike through corrugated sand, through headwinds, sandstorms, no oxygen, struggling to breathe. It was really hard work. So at the end of 3 weeks, I got to the next checkpoint. I thought, well, I'll go through, and if I get stopped, then at least I can stop and have a wash. I've not changed my clothes for 3 weeks, and bits of my body are going rotten. It's a horrible place to be. And if they let me go through, then I can continue cycling. So I got to the checkpoint, and obviously they stopped me and, tell me I've got to have some more paperwork. To go up there, at that point, you're meant to have a military pass, a tour guide with you. You're meant to pay a certain amount. I think it's £100 a day. Be with a group, have a special visa. Like, there was a handful of things I didn't have. But we went through a whole situation. To cut a long story short on that bit, they ended up putting me in a room for a week while they decided what to do with me. The head of police was quite angry. And they played this good cop, bad cop routine. After a week, they came and got me, and I had to pay all these fines and sign some papers. And the bad cops there arguing, "What are you doing up here? It's illegal. It's so forbidden. You're an idiot." Da, 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 da. I said, all I want to do is ride a bike. I'm this stupid guy. I'm not a spy. I'm a stupid guy on a bike.
I'm wearing high-vis. Like, come on. I'm not trying to pull the wool over your eyes.
Did you see the moon?
Didn't I have a selfie with you?
Yeah. So I was sick. When I was in Tibet, I wasn't allowed to go and do very much, but I did find a little cafe. And one day, the owner came and sat with me, and we ate a goat's face together. And I think it made me quite sick.
Well, now that's bonding, isn't it? You don't know someone until you've shared a goat's face.
That's what they say. I needed to get some stuff off my bike, some medicine for a bad stomach, so I went next door where they'd been keeping the bike. And then this good cop in there, I was explaining to him that the bad cop was being mean, and he wanted to argue, and he wanted me to pay all this money. And the good cop said, how much money have you got? I had about $200 in US, and maybe $50 in Chinese yuan. So he's like, you give me that money now, I'll take you to Nepal tomorrow. So the next day, boom, we're in his car, driving off-road. We had some selfies outside. There's a really famous mountain that a lot of people go to. They stopped and had photos with me and put me up in a hotel for the night. And we got just towards the beginning of Nepal, and they let me get out the car. They're like, it's good for you to get out now. We're going to stay here. I was like, well, this isn't Nepal. It's another 10 kilometers until the border. Yeah, it's fine. We've descended this beautiful descent. It's nice and warm now from this frigid world we've been in. And we're going to have a week with our mates in Nepal. So Right, at least you know where your money's going. I just bought a holiday for two to Nepal for a couple of Tibetan policemen.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, sorry that dragged on a bit, but
Oh no, no, that was absolutely fine. I was having a great time listening to that. But also, that is about the opposite of how I would put a trip together. I think what you've done there is amazing. You know, I, I'm the kind of guy that absolutely adheres to speed limits. That you know, if there's a label on the underside of your sofa that says fire retardant 2 dot remove, then I will never remove that sticker. You rode through a border into an area you knew you weren't supposed to be in. That
yeah, I guess I did stupid things when I was younger. But maybe we should put together a tour guide outfit then. Between the two of us, we might get a good balance.
Yeah, sort of a yin and yang thing going on there. Which yeah, no worries. I'll do the paperwork. You
That's
do
great.
the amateur espionage.
Awesome. Okay, yeah. Spy trips to Tibet.
We'll maybe miss spy out of the title. I don't want to get arrested as soon as we arrive,
Oh,
ideally.
it does sound way better, trips to Tibet, yeah.
Yeah, all
Rackets and spies.
right. All right, we can get spy in there somewhere, Lee. It'll be fine.
Oh,
Wow, so that was 20 minutes on Tibet.
yeah.
But
Okay, we've just got 50 more countries to go.
I don't know if my SD cards are going to hold out that long, but we'll do what we can.
All right.
Um, I would take it then that there wasn't much of a training program before this trip. You said you were a bit of a mountain biker before it. Did you just was there a map? Was there a plan, or did you just go?
No, I did have a map. I had a basic plan before I left. I was going to go from England to Australia, and then fly across the Pacific and go up from South America to New York and fly home. And that was a plan based on other adventures that I'd read about. I had a friend from London, he'd done something similar, and there's a famous guy called Alistair Humphreys. I looked at a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Australia was in the plan because I knew I was on a tight budget, but I didn't know how tight it was going to be. And the 2008 economic crisis was really still in full swing in 2010 when I left, and the pound went a lot less distance than I expected. Um, so the plan changed when I was in Australia. I saw other opportunities, and by the time I got to New Zealand, I didn't want to fly across the Pacific. I loved the life that I was living so much, so I decided to cycle around it and take boats and stuff, which was great. Um, and for the training, physically, I don't think it's actually possible. Like, I did cycle a lot, and you know when something's so natural in your life, I grew up with bikes, and I never expected that people were different. But looking back, it turns out I'm quite into bikes.
This is just as well.
Yeah, it took me a while to realise it. But I used to race mountain bikes cross country while I was at university, and then I spent a few years travelling, and that's really where the whole idea came about. I thought I'd put the two things together and ride a bike around the world. But I didn't actually train that much for it. I did a lot more preparation with the technical stuff. I made sure I had enough knowledge about the kind of stoves that I'd have and the water filters and the sleeping equipment, the tent and all the survival gear.
Yeah.
But yeah, the physical side, I didn't even think twice about.
And once you got out there, once you were out in the world, you've already mentioned Tibet was incredibly difficult to cycle around. Was there anywhere tougher than that? I'm sure I read something about you having a difficult time crossing Australia.
Yeah, well, they're actually the highlights. It's a strange thing. I've spoke to other people about it. You go through these beautiful places, and it's very easy, flat riding. You ride along a beach, and then you sleep on the beach, have a swim in the sea. They're stunning visually. It's a beautiful place to be. But the difficult times are the ones that you look back on, and you've changed. Like you've pushed yourself to the limits, and you really feel like you're adventuring. And you have this change in perception as well. You realize how small you are in nature, and to have your own worries put into perspective, like the things that you would be worrying about are nothing compared with, I just need some water, I just need some shelter from this wind, I just need to get warm. They're really humbling times. And so the highlights for me have been Tibet, the desert in Australia, and sailing in the South Pacific. Australia in particular taught me a lot about like the basic necessities of life that we do take for granted. I went into the desert knowing it was a sand track that I'd be following for 3 weeks. And I was prepared with as much water as I could carry. Bearing in mind, I'm already on a bike that weighs 50 kilograms, and I added another 18 kilograms of water, 18 liters.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was physically demanding, and a week's worth of food as well. I don't know how many kilos that would have been, but probably not shy of 10. So to push a bike or to pedal and push into the desert was very hard work. And there was one time when I had a 10-liter water bladder on the back of the bike. This is along really corrugated sand at this time, I think.
Yeah.
And I was riding and taking the bike across the corrugations. And around dusk, I was always looking for a place to sleep, which was not difficult. I'd only pass, I don't know, 3 or 4 cars a day on that desert track. There was nothing around for thousands of kilometers. So I just put the tent in the middle of nowhere. But I looked on the back of the bike and water bladder, bless you.
Sorry.
The water bladder had fallen off the back of the bike, and I didn't know where it would have been through the whole day. And suddenly that realization that I was going to be in the desert, I still had another 2 or 3 days until I was going to get to, I don't know, there would either be a tank of water somewhere or a roadhouse where you could fill up. And I was going to be without that water for those days. It would be impossible to go through. That was the end. I was like, without that, I'm screwed. I dumped the bike. The bike's worth a fortune. It had my passport and a camera and everything that I own, all of those products that you need.
Yeah.
Dumped them all, threw them at the side of the road, and ran back looking for this, just with my head torch, looking through all the bushes for this water bladder. And that realization that 10 liters of water, 1 liter of water in the desert is so valuable. All of these things that we think are so precious, you can get rid of them just for 1 liter of water.
And you're killing me here. I take it you found the water bladder.
Oh, yeah, I should have told you the ending. Yeah, yeah, it was probably 4 or 5 kilometers back. I just ran and ran and ran, and that water bladder should be a better color than black. It's the stealthiest piece of equipment I've got. But I found it, and yeah, camped up and just, found the water, found perspective on life as well, I guess.
Well, there you go. I guess that makes sense. People, you do, when you're having a good time, you aren't embedding it in your memory. It's not so forced in there. When something happens that makes you realize, wow, I was at the edge there. I was far beyond worrying about, is there enough memory left on the SD card in my camera? This is, if I don't find that water bladder, this could be it. This could be where it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, really, I think looking back, those times when I pushed myself, they really made me change. They make you look at your life and your expectations and what you take for granted. And it's also, with those places, I found a really great connection with nature. The two things that I've really enjoyed in the world are the connection with nature and the connection with the people. But those times out in the middle of nowhere, you grow such a great respect for it. We're kind of so insignificant in the world. We think we can do so much when we're in the city. With computers, we can think so fast, and with airplanes, we can move so fast. But when it's just a person and a bike, you really realize your limits, and you grow this respect for nature with the great power that it's got.
It's strange, really, to hear you talk about your limits in that context as well, because what you're doing there is absolutely raising your awareness of what your limits are as a human being, putting yourself against these mammoth distances and different terrains and difficult environments. But it's hard to talk about you in the sense of having limits, looking at how much you've actually managed to achieve. So you're sort of very aware of your limits, but also very aware of how far you can push them if you're willing to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to test them. I think, I still struggle to look at this as one big picture, because I stopped a week ago, just over a week. I've been back in, I guess, what we call the normal world.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to look at it as a complete journey. When people ask me, how do you do it? How have you gone about riding around the world? It's still part of my daily routine. I'd ride the bike and see what unfolds before me, and then at the end of the day, you find a place to put the tent. You camp, normally somewhere with a river or where I wake up with the sunrise, and then you get up the next day and you repeat the same thing. You never know what's going to happen. But when it's your routine, you can't see the grandeur of what's actually happened. Like this, to say that I've ridden around the world, for me, I look at it as like 7 years of daily small bike rides, and I just have the pleasure of being able to add them up on this map. It looks incredible.
You're only 1 week out from a trip that lasted 7 years of your life. Like, I guess it doesn't make sense at this point. The decompression time after something like that must be incredible, and I guess it doesn't make sense at this point to say, "Wow, how did you manage for the last 7 years?" Any more than it would make sense to ask me in 45 minutes to sum up the last 7 years of my life.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's probably a very interesting time to talk about it actually.
Well, I hope so. That's kind of why I called you.
But yeah, just talking about coming back as well. I've spoke to a few people about it. There are a few others who have done long distance bike rides or other long distance adventures, and the returning is quite difficult. You do go through. You've got this life that's been a dream for so long, and the things that you've done are quite wonderful. I do appreciate what I've gone through. It's hard for me to explain what I've done in one adventure, but the life has been incredible. And I've spoken to some, and after a few months, you've been the flavour of the month, and people have wanted to talk to you, and you've established yourself, and then you realise that life is never going to be that good again, and it can be a very big problem for a lot of adventurers. It's something that I'm hoping I'm putting a few steps in the way at the moment. I'm trying to think of new things to do and ways to deal with what comes next.
Yeah, there has to be a next thing. You can't stop now, surely.
I'm looking forward to a different adventure at the moment. Like we were saying earlier, to have all this media attention and to be able to, I'm starting to put ideas that were dreams. Yeah, once again, to ride a bike around the world was a dream. And now I had this dream when I come back that I'd do public speaking about what I've done, help inspire kids to fulfill their dreams, and to write a book. To write a book seemed like an alien concept. How could that be possible? But I seem to be meeting the right people at the moment, and it looks like that would get done this year. So I think little things like that, having something to look forward to, a new dream that you can fulfill, is quite important. And also physical activity. I think, for 7 years I've been fueling myself with 6 hours of endorphins, like the body's natural drugs. I've been riding around the world high for 7 years, you like, and then you have this come down when you come home and you sit and you eat all this luxurious food and you don't exercise anymore. I think the body gets a bit of shock from that as well.
Yeah, I'd say so. Wow. But then, there you go, that's what you were saying about, you've done this thing that was for 7 years. That isn't just over now, and you look for the next thing. This is all part of one journey now, surely. The adventure now it's ongoing, and what happens next won't necessarily see you with a 50-kilogram bike underneath you, but I'm sure it'll be something interesting.
Yeah, I really hope so. I had realizations when I was coming back, that to finish this life as a dream, what do you do when you've lived your dream? It was quite daunting for a while. I arrived in Morocco, I had 2 months left to ride, and suddenly my mind started going places that I didn't expect it to. And I ended up listening to a lot of motivational tapes, MP3s, which got me through a lot of stuff. It changed my perspective on things. It was really nice to come up with this thought that this is just one step, and now I can come up with a more amazing dream. I can do more things. And to use this as a foundation is quite a beautiful thing as well, to look at the future, knowing that I've already ridden a bike around the world. If I can ride a bike around the world, what else can I do? What can't I do? Like, set myself new crazy limits and just keep pushing it. And that would be the same on and off the bike, I think. I think that a lot of adventurers who go around the world on a bike were not cyclists to start with, and they pick it up as a way to see the world and then they put it down. But for me, the bike was always quite an important part of it, so I'll continue doing some cycling adventures. But there's been others as well. We've not talked about the time when I was sailing in the South Pacific, and that was incredible for me. It was really an experience that is unforgettable and so different to the time on the bike. And that's inspiring new dreams as well.
You were in the South Pacific, would I be right in saying you were close to an incident that was, I don't really know how to word it. It made it in the media at the time, and you made a decision there that if you'd have gone the other way, could have been not just the end of the trip, but the end of you.
Yeah, and look, it was it's not a decision where I was thinking, this could be the end of my life or not. It was a decision to go on a boat with a very capable captain on a very well-known boat. So the story goes, when I was going to New Zealand, I was looking for a way. It was always the dream to sail and cycle around the world, so I was looking for a way to continue with sailing around the Pacific. I got in contact with this old lady and a young guy. The guy was the same age as me, and the lady was maybe in her 70s. She had a boat that I was staying on while I was up in the north of New Zealand. And they were going to sail to Fiji, but first they were going to deliver this boat, a bigger boat with 7 people, to Australia. And they were trying to coerce me to get on it. It was a better boat for me. There was room for all my stuff. And so every day, the boat was in the dock. We were working on it, putting a new engine in. And I got to know the crew really well. We became friends, and we had little adventures across the marina. And every day I'd ask if they could make some space in the boat. Would I be able to sail with them? But it wasn't possible. They wanted a stronger crew. If they were going to take one other person, they wanted someone with more experience. So, okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
After a couple of weeks, the day before they left, the wife of the captain came across to me in the yacht club, and she asked if I wanted to go on the boat. After all, I was like, because you said no so long, I've made these other plans. I'm going to see some other friends in Auckland and all this stuff. What I'm going to do is just wait on the boat of the older lady, and then when she comes back, I'll sail to Fiji with her. So, okay, they left. I had some fun with my friends in New Zealand, and then the date that the lady was meant to come back for her boat, she didn't. And then a few more days passed, and suddenly there were these rumours going around, and it turned out that what happened is maybe even 4 or 5 days after that boat left, they ran into some incredible storms coming across the Tasman from Australia. They sent a message back to the forecasters of the weather in New Zealand saying, look, we're in these 10-metre waves. The sails have been shredded. We need to know how to get out of here. The weather forecaster sent a message back saying, stay exactly where you are. We'll send you some coordinates tomorrow morning. We'll get you out of this. The next morning came. They sent the coordinates. No response. Sent them more messages. No response. They alerted the search and rescue who went out looking. Nothing was ever found of this boat. They think that it just snapped in half on these waves and just sank immediately. Wow. And that was a time when I realized that, I could potentially have been on that. I looked to try and get on it. I wanted to. And it was only through the circumstances, maybe through luck, that I wasn't on it. But 7 of my friends were, which was a really hard time for me to deal with that kind of stuff. When you're then looking to get on a boat afterwards. After that, I did get on another boat. We sailed for 9 days up to Fiji. And we got into storms ourselves. We had 6-metre waves around us, and there was no autopilot. It was everybody on the boat had to take it in turns. We'd run shifts, 4 hours each. And those 4 hours, you'd have 4 in the day and 4 in the night. And those night shifts, I remember, they were the most frightening time of the whole adventure, the whole last 7 years. They just try and keep this small yacht. There was only 3 of us on the yacht. Try and keep it going straight through these huge waves that you can't see. It was too cloudy. It was raining. It was cold, and these waves just come up out of nowhere. They're monstrous. You just see the white top, and then it's over the boat, and there's just you directing this boat. Your friends have got to sleep because they've got to get up and do their shift and look after your life next. And yeah, that was incredible. That was one of those times where you are so small in nature, and only the things that you've got with you are the things that are going to save your life. You can't phone your mum and have her pick you up because you've got a puncture or something.
Wow.
Serious stuff. Yeah, that was wonderful. I was alive then.
Yeah. I, as you say, how immensely humbling as well. And I'm very sorry to hear about your friends on that boat as well. That obviously must have been devastating.
Yeah, it was very hard. I still never can look at the ocean again. They come to my mind when I see the sea. Just coming across on the ferry from Calais to Dover, the last one I took, they were in my mind. And there's a few good memories that always come back, but I will never look at the sea again. But it's got this attraction now as well. I can't get away. It's quite an amazing feeling.
You mentioned coming over on the ferry back to the UK. I know we've talked about this trip can't really have had an ending, but you were coming home. Did it feel like you were coming home, or after 7 years are you just distant from that concept now?
Um, yeah, coming home was a strange one. I think for a long time I never thought about it, or it's one of those thoughts that you do have through hard times. You can be having the worst time in the world. It can be monsoon season, and you've lost somebody that you really liked, and you've got no one around. You can't speak the same language, but at least you've always got this thought in your mind that moment when you're going to go home. It's the place where you belong. Nobody can understand you like the people who live in the same place as you and your family. Um, and there was always a thought that put a lump in my throat to come back and see my mum for the first time in the place where I've left her. Wow, that would be so good. And towards the end, I thought about it a lot. After the 6 years, I think my energy started to. I still loved the life, but I think my energy was a little too low. Like in the beginning, I really enjoyed every new country. It was incredible. I wanted to learn the new languages. I wanted to sample the new food and see new things. And towards the end, um, I got to a new country, and I'd feel like, oh, I'm going to be like a child again. I learned Spanish for a lot of countries in South America, and then I'd get to Portuguese in Brazil, and I felt like I'd be a child again, and I couldn't express myself the way I wanted to, and the limits of that lifestyle started to be, maybe they affected me more than the benefits in some ways. So coming home did come to my mind then, but then coming back through Europe, yeah, that idea of actually hitting home, seeing mum started to come back, and you get that lump and a few tears. And on the day that I came back, I knew that I was going to see mum, and I thought I had this strange feeling for a minute. I was like, maybe I've cried all the tears on the road, and I'll have nothing left to give mum when I get back. It was quite sad, but no, for that moment actually, when I came in, it was surreal. It's something you've imagined so many times, but it's very easy to describe what it's like to be too hungry or too hot or too cold or all these feelings that people can understand. But to have this feeling that comes from right within you, that's been kind of saving itself up for 7 years, that feeling that the place that you always knew you were going to get to, but it seems so distant, and then it becomes real, and the people that you've missed become real. It's an overwhelming emotion. It was really, really quite beautiful.
I can only imagine. After 7 years away, that must have been incredible for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So another thing for this is that you were traveling the world on what you approximated sort of £5 a day while you were out there. Was it a hardship? Did it feel like a hardship for you?
I don't know that it did actually. When you strip life of all the luxuries that we have, the basics are really easy to come by, and they're very cheap. Um, I I was sleeping in a tent most nights, so the accommodation was free, and I was on a bike, of course, and transport was free. The only things I ended up paying for were food, and my food was generally from the markets. We don't really tend to have markets in England anymore where you could just go and buy fruits and vegetables. It's all supermarkets, but in most of the world, there'll be a small market in the town where everyone congregates, and it would be a great place for me. It was an experience where I'd learn the language. That people would want me to learn, I don't know, numbers or something like that, or hello and thank you and please. And you start to pick up some basic language skills, and people would want to show you a bit of their life as well. So you try new foods, and maybe throw in a few extra fruits when you're buying some rice or something. But my general diet from the markets was rice, a few vegetables, some stock to make a soup or something like that, some porridge in the morning. It's a really, really basic life. So the £5, in some countries it was more than enough. Southeast Asia was quite cheap. Oh, all of Asia probably. Some countries of South America, Bolivia in particular, that was very cheap. Some countries it was very expensive, and I needed more. Europe was expensive. The States were expensive. But an interesting cultural difference in the States was, in a lot of countries, people show their appreciation, or they show their generosity through inviting you into their house, and they share their dinner and their home with you, their family. But in the States, because of their culture, almost of fear, I guess, I was never invited into a stranger's house. I did stay in the houses of people that I ended up getting to know.
Yeah.
But from strangers, I was offered a lot of money. I think I went through the States basically for free. I had a sign on the back of the bike going through there that just said "Around the World." and people would regularly stop. They'd pull over in their car and talk to me about what I'm doing and was it real, and it had been their dream to do that when they were young, but now there's kids in the back and it's not possible for them to do it. So anyway, you're living my dream, Lee. Here, take $20 and really do the best thing you can, which was great. I think on the day that I left LA, I made $80 just from having this sign, which in some ways it was heartwarming. I think the generosity of people around the world is always different. It was really nice. It was just a very strange difference in the culture that in the States it's shown through money rather than the rest of the world it's through actions or what they could offer without cash.
So the urge to help you in what you're doing and be a part of what you're doing is there, but the culture of, I don't want to be all mega serious here saying the culture of fear that we live in, but there is a perception there that their own personal safety is more important, and also they have the money to offer you, whereas if you live in a culture where you don't necessarily have the cash just to hand out, then you're going to give what you can, and if that's a roof over your head, then that's what you'll give.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the bottom line under all of it is no matter how the kindness was given, that kindness of strangers it spread all around the world. I think when people, no matter where they are, they see just one man on a bike, it's a very vulnerable way to travel. You're exposed to the elements of nature, you're exposed to attack, you're exposed to everything. And I think everybody in the world does have this desire to help. I think it's an innate part of the human nature to help each other, to be good. But it's just that a lot of people don't have the opportunity. And to see a cyclist coming to your town from the horizon, it gives you an opportunity to help, to show someone your life and to help them in some way. And that was the same throughout the world. I never experienced a single country where people didn't go out of their way to help me. Just the kindness of strangers.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic. And I think it's kind of a nice note to end on as well. The world is a positive place if you go out there and you're willing to experience it.
Yeah. Oh, I can't recommend it enough. It's something that I never thought of doing.
I can't recommend the world enough to people.
Get out there and do it. I used to work in an office. It was something that I was, I was happy to do, but it wasn't fulfilling me. And then I just went out and did this crazy thing. It's really something that people should get out there and do. I thought that holidays used to be, they had to be a flight to a hotel and you'd stay there and you'd sit on the beach and drink the tequila and then go home and go back to work. But yeah, it turns out you can really do anything you want. It's quite wonderful.
Fantastic. Oh, I'll tell you what, there was something I wanted to ask you about.
Go for it.
What the hell was your bike made of that it weighed 50 kilos? I mean, what were you carrying with you? This sounds part tank.
Yeah. She's a beautiful tank, though.
Is it the same bike you've had for the whole time?
It's the same bike, yeah. It's a wonderful bike. I'm very lucky. There's a company in my home city. I'm from Derby. There's a company called Mercian. They're based here. And they still build bikes in the old-fashioned way. There's no robots involved. You go in, you get measured up for the bike. They ask you how you want it built, what are you going to do? So we used the strongest steel that we could. And you can tailor everything from the paint job to the amount of bottle holders you've got and stuff like that. So they built me a frame. And then I approached other companies for components. Some were sponsored, some I bought myself. But with a background in mountain biking, I just built this bike to be as strong as possible. There were no hydraulics. There was nothing, like no suspension, nothing that could go wrong. If my main thought when I built it was, if something goes wrong in Tibet, I'm screwed. How can I avoid that?
Yeah.
So I just put the best bearings I could afford, the strongest wheels, very heavy stuff, but it was just going to keep going. And it did the job. And then onto that, I had 4 panniers. So there were 2 on the front and 2 on the back, as well as the tent and a food bag that went on the back as well. And the panniers, there's one pannier I hated. It's the one that's got all the stuff in that you would never use, but if something goes wrong, they're going to save your life. There's the first aid kit, which is quite comprehensive.
Yeah.
And in that box as well, there's the tools for the bike and a spare tire, some spare tubes, some extra things to fix the bike if it was needed and waterproof. The other front one was cooking equipment. So I carried a stove that could burn any kind of fuel. a water filter so that if I was stuck and I needed to filter some water, I'd stay alive. Other basics for survival like that, some warmer clothes, toilet paper, that's pretty handy to have at the top of the bag, especially in India. And then the back ones were clothes and sleeping equipment. So when you think of anything that you really need for life, you need to eat, you need to sleep, you need some shelter, you need water. They're really the things that I had covered, and anything else kind of saw as a luxury. I did have those stovetop coffee makers, I think it's called a mocha, the metal one that you screw together, and everyone says, oh, you'd never want to carry that on a bike, it's way too heavy. I carried that.
You've got to have a luxury item though, haven't you? And if you're already carrying 49.5 kilos, then, what's
It's another half, yeah.
Throw it in, why not?
Throw it in, why not?
All right. Well, fantastic. Look, Leigh, it's been a genuine pleasure to talk to you, and I look forward to the book, because I suspect we could put together a solid 9 or 10 hours of podcast here, but I look forward to the book. I look forward to reading all the other bits of this 7-year journey you've been on.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good process. I'm looking forward to writing the book. There's going to be a lot of things that I've forgotten over the years. I've got these pile of diaries now. I'm going to pull out these little glimpses of the life that I had. It's going to be quite wonderful. It's great for me, and I hope it's going to be interesting for people to read as well.
There'll be stuff in there that you've forgotten as well. That'll be like doing some of it all over again.
Yeah, I think it'll be this cathartic process, to go through all of this stuff. And like I was saying, I can't see it from outside at the moment. I'm still so within it. And I think the reading through what I've done will put me outside again. I can see what an amazing journey I've gone through.
Fantastic. Well, Leigh, look, thank you very much. It's been really enjoyable to talk to you today. And, I wish you luck in whatever the next part of your adventure is.
Thanks very much. It was a pleasure to speak to you. Maybe we'll do it again in a few years.
Yeah, I'd like that. We'll stick one in the diary.
Perfect. Thanks very much, mate.